Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to our channel. Today we have a video we'll be presenting to you by the UAE mouthpiece Faris on Ikhwan al-Muslimun. Why we chose this video? The UAE are at the forefront of Nifaq. Madkhalism is a Trojan horse used to justify rulers and invoke apathy. The UAE Madkhali nexus have targeted Islamism, Islam in public affairs, governance, and all matters associated with accounting rulers. They have fixated on Ikhwan. By extension, they use their critique of Hamas, and this was presented recently by Abdurrahman Khamis, I think that's his name. It was a mild critique, but it comes from the same vantage
Uthman
point.
Khamis, I think.
Yeah.
Dr. Uthman Khamis.
Yeah.
The
So,
Kuwaiti.
yes, the Kuwaiti one. So there seems to be some kind of convergence on singling out Ikhwan, governance, and then by extension, apathy, and just trust the rulers. They have the best interests at heart. Ultimately, their aim is to undermine real Islamic governance and build acquiescence to tyrants. A Banu Umayyah 2.0, if you'd like to coin it as such. The video itself is full of slander used as justification. What the video does succeed in is exposing the nefarious creed and sloppy argumentation of the government sycophants. There's numerous instances of contradiction, hypocrisy, which you can apply back on themselves, but we'll go through that in some detail. By the end, we hope to show this deviant Madkhali ideology is an anathema to Islam. It undermines accountability and is in cahoots with tyrants and is completely divisive and nefarious. Faris hoped to expose Ikhwan, but in reality, he exposed himself and his ignoble ilk. He also misattributes not only takfir and Khwarij, but puts blame on the wrong place. Ironically, Wahhabism, which he exposes, is more to blame for this kind of excessive takfir. His hypocrisy and double standards have been laid bare in this video, and inshallah, we will rip it apart. I'll play sections of the video in full and invite the professor to talk, to comment on them. So brace yourselves, everyone. I'll give you forewarning. You may want to punch the screen. It's on audio, so we save you from the full ignoble experience, because you'll probably realize how sickening some of his statements are in terms of how disingenuous. Anyway, I'll start at the 8-minute mark. We'll put the full video in. We have nothing to hide because there is nothing of substance that is uttered from this paid sycophant's mouth. Anyway, the first statement is his preamble. I'll play now.
I collected a lot of documents and materials and statements for this video. And I want to tell you about the truth of the Muslim Brotherhood and how they are. It's fair to say that they are Khawarij, and they are the modern day Khawarij. And I'm not saying this because, wallahi, some governments labeled them as that officially. They said they are an extremist group and all that. Absolutely not. But this has been said even before them being officially labeled and categorized as an extremist group. Many ulama, decades ago, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, they would call them that, and they would refute them and warn against them and call them as deviant. The Prophet ﷺ told us that the Khawarij and the deviance and the poison of the Khawarij is not going to stop at any time. The Prophet ﷺ, in a hadith that was narrated in Musnad al-Imam Ahmad, he said, whenever a group of them emerged, meaning the Khawarij, Allah the Almighty will cut them off. And Ibn Umar said, the Messenger of Allah, peace and blessing be upon him, repeated this 20 times or more, and I was listening. Every time, whenever a group emerges, Allah will cut them off. Whenever a group emerges, Allah will cut them off. And wallahi, I will show you how al-Ikhwan al-Muslimin, most deviant, poisonous group of people that has harmed not only the Ummah but the world with their deviance. And let's start with a disclaimer, first of all. And people are going to say, oh, this guy's paid, this guy, they paid him to do this and to. Nobody paid me to do this. Wallahi, I will give you the statements of Ikhwan Muslimin, of the founders and the godfathers of Ikhwan Muslimin, and you judge by yourself. You will judge by yourself. I got them from their books and their references, and you be the judge. Yeah. Second of all, this was my stance ages ago. This is not something new that I came up with or I changed or anything like that. This was always my stance with regards to Ikhwan Muslimin. And I will also share with you the narrations of the scholars with their regards. First of all, let's build the foundation as usual. What is the ruling on creating sects in Islam? Yani, Islam by itself is a sect. We are a group of people gathered on some fundamentals and principles through revelation that we have to be together and we have to not divide. Allah Azza wa Jalla قال في القرآن ولا تكونوا من المشركين من الذين فرقوا دينهم وكانوا شيعا كل حزب بما لديهم فرحون. Be not of the mushrikeen or part of the mushrikeen or like the mushrikeen, the polytheists, the idolaters, the disbelievers in the oneness of Allah, of those who split up their religion and divided, and became sects, sub-sects, and followed their vain desire. Each sect are happy with what they call for. Allah Azza wa Jalla amarana, ordered us to be together, to be one hand, one group, one sect. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا, and hold fast all of you together to the rope of Allah. In here it says, i.e. this Quran and the Sunnah and the explanation of the pious predecessors. This is what we have to hold on to. If you hold on to the Quran, people will come divide, misinterpret the Quran. So we have to hold on to the Quran and the interpretation, the correct interpretation of the Quran, and do not be divided among yourselves. Now, so we know this, that in Islam we cannot be sects. We cannot be sects. Let's listen to Sheikh Al Fawzan when he was asked about the ruling of relying or being part of a sect and creating sects in Islam.
السلام ورحمة الله. يا شيخ، هل قول الله سبحانه وتعالى كل حزب بما لديهم فرحون هل هو على سبيل الذم أم أنه يجوز التحزب وإنشاء الأحزاب؟
He said, Allah Azza wa Jalla said, every sect are happy with what they call for. The ayah that I mentioned. He said, is this Allah is praising them? Is this a good thing? Or is it not allowed to create sects in Islam? This is the question that was directed to Shaykh Al Fawzan, Hafidhahullah.
وما إلى ذلك. شكرا. يا أخي، الله أمرنا بالاجتماع على طاعته سبحانه وتعالى وأن نكون أمة واحدة. إن هذه أمتكم أمة واحدة وأنا ربكم فاعبدون.
The Shaykh, may Allah preserve him, said, Allah ordered us to be together, unite together on the obedience of Allah. He said, this is an ummah that is one, and you worship Allah as one.
ونهانا عن التفرق لا تكونوا كالذين تفرقوا واختلفوا من بعد ما جاءهم البينات وأولئك لهم عذاب عظيم ولا تنازعوا فتفشلوا تذهب ريحكم واصبروا إن الله مع الصابرين.
And here he mentioned a couple of ayat that he said, do not divide and do not be sects and do not go one against each other and be together and be patient. And Allah ordered us not to divide and not to become subsects.
فعلينا أن نجتمع على طاعة الله عز وجل ومن فارق الجماعة قيد شبر مات ميتة جاهلية.
He said we have to unite, confirming this. And he said anybody who leaves the Jama'ah, the unity of the Muslimin, and he dies upon that he is divided from the Muslimin, then he will die a death of ignorance.
علينا أن نجتمع على طاعة الله وعلى أمة الإسلام ولا نتفرق. والله جل وعلا قال واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا. وأما قوله تعالى فتقطعوا أمرهم بينهم زبرا كل حزب بما لديهم فرحون، هذا من باب الذم، لأنهم لم يكفي أنهم تفرقوا بل كتبوا كتبا كل واحد يؤيد ما هو عليه بالحجج الباطلة والترويجات الكاذبة.
He said this is with regards, I'll briefly say it, he mentioned some ayat that we have to unite together, confirming this concept. And then he said this ayah that everybody is happy with what they call for is like Allah is criticizing them. This is not something that Allah is praising, but bil'aks, Allah is criticizing, meaning that you have to refrain from that. They're calling to things that are lies and assumptions and not to the truth. And that's why everybody's happy with what they call for. It's all conflicting with one another.
يعتمدون على كتبهم الباطلة وأنها تخالف ما عليه الآخرون، هذا لا يجوز. الله أمرنا أن نعتصم بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم، ولا نكتب كتبا من عندنا نختص بها.
And we cannot, I'll end this here, but he said we cannot also come up with new things and say we tell people to restrict ourselves with what we say and what we do. And this is sectarianism. What I say is the truth, and that's it. That's the truth. Not about the Quran and the Sunnah. It's that. I'm the one that calls off what's right and wrong. This is sectarianism, and he's clearly refuting this and warning against it. This is not part of Islam. And by the way, this is not only Sheikh Saleh Al Fawzan. This is like a standalone fatwa or anything. No. First of all, he backed up what he said with ayat, and he backed up with what he said with logic, with Quran, and all of the ulama that I know of, that they warn against creating sects in Islam. This is not allowed.
So just on that, so the premise he's laying is that initially to put a premise around sects. Now, obviously, it's a matter of discussion what constitutes a sect, and his use of the breaking the Jama'ah, whether that even has any applicability in reference to Ikhwan. So he's going to do this. He's going to make this idea of a sect, and he's going to effectively project that onto Ikhwan. But Sheikh, feel free to make any commentary on just hearing what you've...
Continue your points, and then we'll comment. Yeah.
Okay, Charles. So he starts off on the issue of sects, because certain assumptions are made that a political group, which he'll start going into, is somehow becoming a sect. Ironically, there's a preoccupation with sects when the most divisive people we have seen in recent history have been those people who
him and his ilk. Yeah.
Yes.
Let me just comment on that. First of all, he started about his main thrust direction is that Ikhwan are Khwarij. Okay. And then he does not define what Khwarij are, does not summarize the hadith about Khwarij, what's their characteristic, which mistakes have made in Islamic history between various writers in defining what's Khwarij, and there are blunders, mistakes. I don't need to say anything about that, because luckily now there was a very huge video recorded with Brother Shahzad Butt several years ago, ages ago almost, and it was almost like archived. But now it's revived at last and issued. I think the first part of it, how many parts are planned?
3 parts.
3 parts.
So the third one will be out next week, inshallah.
Maybe it should be subdivided more, because it's every part is very long. But the first part is already out. I took a look usually I don't see my own videos after that. Just wait for the feedback from the people, and then we can discuss. But I decided to take a look because this recorded 7-8 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
So I was there because some ideas have developed further, because we don't stuck to rotten ideas like this guy for hundreds of years. No, we review our ideas, discuss, get the feedback, improve, and so on. Improve, how to improve, to read the Book of Allah again, second, third time, try to get the next layer, the deep meaning, and the second level of deep meaning, the third level, and according to the hadith, up to 7 meanings. The discussion of these various levels of the understanding the Quran, plus what is the definition of Khwarij, the story of the Khawarij, is in part 1, which is already out. The best thing for that is that who are interested in that in detail should check that video, which the link will be given, I think, in the description right away now. It will be the first one in the description. So a video about Khawarij, this part. Summary is that the main characteristics of Khawarij is that they are shallow thinking. They're shallow thinking. They read the Quran without deep understanding. Usually one ayah and ignoring another ayah. And even in the same ayah, ignoring the various possible meanings, because some ayahs of the Quran, most of them have several meanings. Each one has its own importance in a certain area. That's the miraculous nature of the Quran, with just a couple of 6,000 fraction of ayahs covering issues until Yawm al-Qiyamah, including sometimes in some places extremely deep philosophical issues. But you will not get them unless you read the Quran from cover to cover, not one ayah. He reads only one ayah about that. Don't be like the mushrikeen who disputed about their own religion. فَرَّقُوا دِينَهُمْ وَكَانُوا شِيَعًا, and they became parties. So the mushrikeen who attacked there and then, is who split in their religion. This one worship a deity, the other worship another deity. This one believes that, for example, well, although they are not mushrikeen, they are Kitab, but they have a type of shirk in them. The Trinitarian Christian believe that God is a Trinity, that there is a divine substance shared by three persons. That's a type of shirk. While others say, no, it is only one divine being, and he's a created being, but they're between him and the world, that there are two different creation. These two different vast religions and vast concepts of the divine in such a way that two different religions, leading that each one regard the other one as essentially as outside his religion, as a kafir. That's the tafriq al-deen. Deen is the way of life. Deen is devotion. Deen is belonging to a certain authority. Whatever the meaning of deen, they split in the fundamentals, not in issues which may be issues of ijtihad and so on. Issues of ijtihad, there will be always disagreement, provided everyone understands an issue of ijtihad, and that my point of view is a valid one, unless an evidence come against it. Does not regard it as absolute. Then he's fine, no problem. Because there will be always disagreement about various points of ijtihad and various points of view, and they can be arbitrated, they can be discussed out, and so on. This will be obviously minimal in the time of the messenger, because the messenger is infallible. He will settle every dispute. Sometimes he doesn't settle deliberately. To give you an example for things he did not settle, is that one time he was sitting in the masjid or praying, and some people came and said, Messenger of Allah, we were reading Surah Tabaraka biyadihi al-mulk, Surah Tabaraka. And we have a small disagreement about, is it 29 ayahs or 30 ayahs? A trivial point, not worthy of discussion. The face of the Messenger became red and said, don't dispute about the Quran. They repeat the question, he said, don't dispute about the Quran. He did not say 29 or 30. He said, trivial point. If it's 29, that's the count. If 30, it's irrelevant count. That's not a major issue. You can have a difference, but don't dispute about it. My point of view is that these two sentences are one ayah. So I'm saying, no, we should have an end of ayah at this point. This is a matter of counting, which is not world-shattering, so to say. One time he came out and found people discussing about qadar. And one say, did Allah say that? Another say, no, didn't Allah say that? So trying to show that these points of view are diverging. And then he said, he was so angry that his face was so red, as if someone rubbed pomegranate in his face. Pomegranate is an example of red, which you cannot get with difficulty out of your hand. And he say, أَبِهَذَا أُمِرْتُمْ أَلِهَذَا خُلِقْتُمْ? Are you commanded to do that? Are you created for that? You're not created. I say, if you don't understand how to understand the book of Allah, which has been revealed, that each part of it confirming the other, then refer it to the one who is knowledgeable. Don't strike an ayah against an ayah. You don't talk about qadar, just the issue of striking ayah against an ayah instead of putting them together. Because you have two options. If you two ayahs you think they are contradicting, then you have to have the courage to say they are really contradicting. It cannot be from Allah, and this is an impostor. It's not a messenger. You have to conclude that there's no escape. So the Quran says clearly, don't they ponder about the Quran if it's not from anybody except Allah? It would have contradiction. So if you construct a contradiction, a certain contradiction, and you're certain about it, then you should have the courage to say, I'd expose your Muhammad as an impostor, or I am mistaken. It may be fitting together, because that issue under discussion is such a complex issue, having so many facets, like the issues of destiny, divine knowledge. These are very deep, complex issues. Everyone knows. So looking like a cube, it has 6 faces. From one side, say, oh, the cube has the number 1 on it. If you look from the other side, it's number 6. You know that. So looking for it, until you understand the cube in full and how many faces it has, you have to look from all sides. Meaning you have to look at various places in the Quran to put it together, because the issue itself is multifaceted and complex. If you recognize that, for example, the issue of qadar, then you set things snugly and you come to a conclusion which is manifestly correct, which is dictated by necessity of reason, which destroy any theory of fatalism and things like that. It has not been done in Islamic history, unfortunately. But they're giving that example. Why it was not done? Because someone stuck with one ayah and left all the other ayahs without trying to combine them together, etc., etc. Or prefer to look what Aristotle and Plato are certain, based on human thinking and working and definitely hard intellectual work. We're not doubting that, but it is according to the level of their time and how much science and knowledge sophisticated reached at their time. They reached a certain level of philosophical discourse. 1,000 years later, we have advanced further. We are able now to do infinite series. We are able to do limits. At the time, they have paradoxes about limits. Now we laugh about the paradox of Zeno, the Zeno paradox, because it's not a paradox at all. But people did not know how to sum infinite series. Now we know how to do it in a consistent, structured way. So we're advancing, and then we have to develop our own point of view. The people may have an excuse, but there no excuse to claim what I have is an absolute and what you have is absolutely wrong. No. What I have seems to be the correct one, unless you bring me an evidence that I am wrong, and vice versa, you are wrong, unless you bring an evidence that to prove that you are right and I am wrong. That's it. That's a correct way of point of view. So that's where the problem of the Khawarij is they did not read the Quran in a way which fulfilled this principle. Reading all it from cover to cover, number one. Secondly, reading things which relate to a certain situation, try to apply another which is a different situation. Like, for example, he says about that, the ayah is clear about the mushrikeen. Don't be like the mushrikeen who divided their religion. Each Shia or each party is happy with what they have. These are mushrikeen and they are split in deen. They have various religions, fundamental differences which define each one as a separate religion. Look, for example, let's take an example if you have nowadays Hinduism. Hinduism is clearly a different religion. Yes, they tolerate each other because they go again to a fundamental point of view that the universe is some kind of a magic Brahmana, not Brahma, Brahmana entity, which is magically controlling the universe. So it materialized somewhere as Durga. And it materialized somewhere the three deity, Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu. And now another way, Vishnu materializes or incarnates as Krishna or as Ram and other incarnation which are this important. And in South India, it materializes other divine entities like Kali and a certain satanic entity and so on. Obviously, there are different deeds and different deities. But the fact that they regard themselves all as Hindu because they can connect everything to some kind of mysterious, never-ending and never-beginning Brahmana, something like that. That's what's addressed in the ayah. To start with, can it apply to differences between Muslims? Does it go to that level? That has to be analyzed further. But because these are having Faris, I know that you prefer to call him Faris al-Himar. It's just Hamadi or Hamadi. Faris al-Himar he did not read the Quran, for example, about Bani Israel in Surah Al-Sajdah. He did not read this one. Maybe he doesn't know this ayah exists. He said about the children of Bani Israel, وَجَعَلَ مِنْهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا لَمَّا صَبَرُوا وَكَانُوا بِآيَاتِنَا يُوقِنُونَ. So we made from them, from the house of Israel, because وَأَخَذْنَا مُوسَى الْكِتَابَ وَجَعَلْنَا هُدًى لِبَنِي إسرائيل وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا لَمَّا صَبَرُوا وَكَانُوا بِآيَاتِنَا. We gave Musa the book and made it a guidance for Bani Israel generally. وجعلنا منهم أئمة يهدون بأمرنا لما صبروا وكانوا بآياتنا يوقنون. We made under them leaders who guide, who lead with our guidance. يهدون بأمرنا. They guide the people by our command. Why they become أئمة? He gives the two conditions for imamah. Sabr, endurance, with all types of sabr, which I'm not going to discuss now. Obviously, we're not discussing sabr and the virtues of sabr and morality of sabr, but it's sabr in facing hardship and persecution, sabr in facing calamity, and sabr in resisting the temptation of wealth and power and money. Three types of sabr there. That's it. And بِآيَاتِنَا يُقِينَ. They are convinced about the revelation of Allah to be Allah's revelation. They hold to it tight, absolutely convinced it's Allah's revelation, and hence it's the absolute truth. My understanding may be not the absolute truth, but in these ayat are the absolute truth. Nevertheless, after that, Allah comes and say, إِنَّ رَبَّكَ هُوَ يَفْصُلُ بَيْنَهُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فِيمَا كَانُوا فِيهِ. Allah would decide between them in the day of judgment in the things they were disputed about. So even these imams, these Bani Israel, either the imams or Bani Israel, they have certain dispute under them. Allah will arbitrate between them يوم القيامة. Some of it cannot be arbitrated in dunya even. So it means essentially, it does not undermine that they are believer or they are imams, that they have some disputes. and various understanding. He's talking about Bani Israel. With a greater reason, it should apply to Ummah Muhammad. So this agreement between the people belonging to Ummah Muhammad, some of it is of this type. If it comes from those who have صبروا وبآياتنا يوقنون. So if for example, Muslim Brotherhood disagree with, let us say, with the group to which Faris al belongs, then we check first the people. Are there signs that they are people of yaqeen and of sabr? I would say both parties lack in that considerable. And most people lack. But a few do not lack. Sayyid Qutb, for example, does not lack. Up to the gallows. He was led to the gallows. He refused to come down from his point of view. Shows conviction. And he could not be enticed by wealth, by money, by anything. So he's from those who sabr bi'atana. So we hope that he was of the imam. Or we may disagree at some point and say, in this point, he did not develop it properly. It's no problem, but he's still an imam. While from this Salafi and Madkhali, I don't see anyone who has persisted on a point of view and resisted rulers and ruler payment and ruler taking over until he went to the gallows. No, none of them went to the gallows. Actually, all what they say and blabber is supporting certain rulers whose stench and kufr and nifaq is so clear and manifest. So maybe they don't belong. Maybe at least some who belong nominally, at least to the Muslim Brotherhood, do belong into the category of imams, even if we dispute with them something which only Allah may arbitrate over Qiyamah, and something might be arbitrated today. Why? Because this final revelation is protected, and enough of it is protected to settle every dispute qabla yawm al-Qiyamah. But even if you cannot settle it in a certain generation, another generation may settle it, or maybe yawm al-Qiyamah. No big deal, as long as it's within the frame of Quran and Sunnah, and the mutawatir and the yaqini. Then the dispute will be about secondary issues. If it goes to fundamental issues, there must be some disease there. Either someone have diseased heart of nifaq, or someone have the disease of receiving money from certain tyrants, and you want to argue by batil. So what the Messenger said, the most fear, what I fear for my ummah more than I fear the Dajjal, is Munafiq Alemm al-lisan. A Munafiq, a hypocrite, the one who is known to be a Muslim, in reality he is a kafir, and his tongue is knowledgeable. He doesn't alim, alim, or scholar. Alim al-lisan. He talks in a structured way like a knowledgeable person. But he's not knowledgeable, because if he were knowledgeable really, if the knowledge is in the heart, he would not be Munafiq. Munafiq alim al-lisan. So again, all his premises are valid. First of all, he talks about Khwarij, if it is well established and clear what they are without discussing. And many people will be shocked. Just review the video first. I think the video is very fundamental, and the link of the video should be put. And secondly, the issue of the ayah and tafarruq. Tafarruq fi deen does not mean becoming sects, or becoming Shia, becoming different deeds. الذين فرقوا دينهم. They split their religion. Whatever interpret deen is that they split their way of life. They have different way of life. And as far as I know, I don't think the Muslim brothers say we have a deen of life different than a deen of life of the Madkhali. All of them say our way of life is Islam. They may have interpretation of what subcategories are there, but all of them, our way of life is Islam. Our worship, our sacrifice, our fasting, our zakat, our ruling system, our banking system should be according to Islam. The same the Madkhali would say. I don't see any Madkhali say, no, our banking system can be a capitalist one from America. No Madkhali say that, for example. So both of them, our deen, our way of life is Islam. They will disagree about certain other points, which does not make you out of Islam. When in Islam, then the ayah does not apply. First of all, in the first instance, it does not apply. We have to invoke something else. There will be the dispute about certain ta'wil and certain issues we accept ta'wil, and certain issues of ta'wil which are motivated by human desires, by longing to power, longing to money, longing to wealth, that have to be sorted and discussed in its own merit. But that ayah should not be invoked. Something else should be invoked. And there's enough for that. It's not that the Quran is empty of that. The Quran is full of that. It's full of that. So, just generally, it is a matter of life and death to review what Khawarij are. Let me stress again. First of all, they don't understand the Quran. They are shallow. They did not digest it. It doesn't become part of their chest. The metaphorical chest, part of their knowledge, is not integrated in their chest of knowledge. Sharh al-Sadr, their chest has not opened and inquisited this knowledge, so it becomes knowledge, not just bits of data, not just an ayah here, an ayah there, an ayah there. That's not knowledge. It has to fit together to become information, not just data, bits 100, 101. That's not in. Until it's put together in context, it becomes an information. Then it is then knowledge. Before that, it's just data. Data is not enough. You have to have knowledge. That's the first disease of Khawarij. Second one, disease of the Khawarij, and the most devastating one actually, which that they admire their self, and they regard themselves as purified and holy, and they can judge the others. Self-righteousness. And the Quran condemns self-righteousness and self-praise to the extreme. To the extreme. Especially the Israelites are known for that. Say, أَلَمْ تَرَ الَّذِينَ يَزَكُّونَ أَنفُسَهُم بَلِ اللَّهُ يَزَكِّي مَن يَشَاءُ وَلَا يَضُرُّ مَن فَتِيلًا. Don't see those who declare themselves to be holy and to be the children of Allah, to be forgiven and so on. No. Allah declare classify people according to His infinite knowledge, and they will not be misjudged at all, even if they commit this grave sin of arrogance and self-gratification, self-aggrandization. Allah will give them their due. Then say, see how much fabrication against Allah they're saying, because the self-aggrandization means we are close to Allah, we are the children of Allah, we are His darling, we are forgiven, we go to the hellfire maximum only a few days. This is all lies against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where do you have? Do you have a covenant with Allah? Where it is? Where it is written? Show us where it is. In exact terms. Look at your history. How much punishment and strikes came against you for your transgression. So you are lying. You're like God. And lying against Allah is one of the gravest sins. And in another place, address to the believers, say, don't make tazkiyah of it. Don't declare yourself to be pure and holy. Allah knows you about exactly when He created you from mud and where you are fetuses in your mother wombs. He knows very exactly what you are. Don't go out, blow yourself out of proportion. Humble yourself. Know your limitation. And if you look at this measure applied to Muslim Brotherhood and to this guy, the Madkhali, let's call it Madkhali and Jami group, you find this disease much more prevalent by the Madkhali than the Muslim Brotherhood. They have some. Definitely, they have some touch of that, but the Madkhali had a master portion of that. A master portion of that. A considerable portion. So, review the definition of Khwarij, review that. So, in both counts, he's playing game with that. And then the one he is invoking, Al Fawzan, I don't want to be abusing to anyone on a personal level, but this man does not understand what's going on in the world. He doesn't know what's going on in the world. I'll give you an example. I was once giving in a talk or in a question and answer session about the divine descent in the third part of the night, because there's a hadith in the last third of the night, Allah the Exalted Majestic comes down to the nearest heaven and calls who supplicate to me, so I respond to his supplication. Who asks me for forgiveness, so I forgive him, and so on. And then when the dawn breaks, he goes up again. So materially, if you look at if you in your imagination as a symbol, let's say you are a camel boy or a cowboy, symbol man, you have an image of Allah like a huge body. Okay, simple people will have such images. It's forgiven, because this is the way the brain is structured. You cannot imagine things except in space and time. Okay, fine. Then you think he descended to a throne, and some so-called hadith scholars, some donkeys, I cannot abstain from using a donkey, were discussing that the throne become empty or not empty, and things like that. That's utterly nonsense. So I said, all this discussion is absurd. This is giving just an example so you can enjoy an image. Like someone saying, if you come to my door, to my house, I will not talk you from the 5th floor. I have a high rise. I'm in the penthouse up there. I will come down to receive you at the door as a welcome. Does not mean it says that I come, but I'm so welcome you that you'll find me at the door. No need for that. You come, take the elevator, come to me. There's no problem. but it's a metaphorical expression. And I enforce that by saying, because we know that a third of the night, any part of there will be a part of the world which is in the third of the night every day, all the time. So, for example, here in London now we are post sunset by 1 hour. We are not the first third of the night, but the opposite place maybe in Japan is in the third of the night. So Allah is down there, according to imagination of the simple-minded human being, is down there asking the people in Japan, anyone repenting to me, so I accept his repentance. But not here. And since there would be a third of the night somewhere in the world every time, so he must be continuously down, not continuously up, if he's really moving up and down. So this is metaphorical. This time is so blessed, the last third of the night. Your last third of the night is so relevant for you. That is the time for you to pray and ask for forgiveness and to ask and bring your prayer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the prime time for acceptance. That's what it means. That's what it means. Now, I said that. I think it's logical and dictated by necessity of reason and necessity of perception. Someone asked Al Fawzan, Sheikh, there's someone claims that if that's true, then there will be a third of the night everywhere in the world. So Allah is always down somewhere. So we're gonna be down and up at the same time. What is this? Because the earth is round and it's rotating. He said, this Fawzan, the philosopher, exceptional intellectual, say, who told you that the earth is round and it rotates? I just stop here. I leave it to the listener to enjoy the story. So this man cannot be asked about anything. If someone of such lack in the gray matter of his head to that level, then asking him about anything is a waste of mental energy and waste of really scholarly energy. This man, the poor man, is not qualified. He doesn't know what he's saying, just blubbering things. He would have been better if he checked Ibn Taymiyyah, the great Imam, Shaykh al-Islam, despite of all his blunders. He discussed the issue of Ahzab and Shia and Tahazzub and so on, and came to completely different conclusions. That's completely okay. As long as their allegiance, they don't fight for that cause, then they're still fine. Because people will be always having Ahzab, the groups. They will be even professional groups, like, for example, at the time of Taymiyyah, they were, like, for example, the jeweler have their own organization. They call it guilds, guild of jeweler, guild of this, that, and they were well organized. They have a sheikh of the guilds and so on. Sometimes they have dispute, but it never come to the one regard the other one as an enemy and pull the sword. Then you are out of the fold of Islam with that. That's it. And we discussed that liberally. We should have read his imam before opening his mouth. But these people, even their own greater, the one who they declare to be greater imam, and they may be not that great, but definitely greater than Fawzan, they don't even read them. And they dare then mentioning an ayah which does not fit, does not apply to anybody. This ayah relates to the mushrikeen and the split in the religion. The other ayah, وَلَا تَنْزَعْ فَتَفْشِلْ وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ, this is in a comment, is if I remember correctly, in Surah Ali Imran. We may check if you have a search facility in your computer now or in your mobile. وَلَا تَنَازَعْ فَتَفْشَلُوا. That's commenting on the people disputing with the commander on the mountain in the Battle of Uhud. The commander told the Messenger of Allah told us, don't come down even if you see us being eaten by the bears until I give you my command. Then you come down. Stay on the top of the mountain. And they disputed with the commander. So no, he meant this, he meant that, he didn't mean that, he didn't mean stay. The battle is over, it's clear, it's as good as he called us. That's a dispute. But dispute in the battlefield, in a matter which requires military discipline, led to the catastrophe of Uhud. Simple. If I remember correctly, that's another dispute with the one in charge in a situation where you have to have strict obedience, because the tactics of the battlefield require strictness. It was commitment to hold the line, not to break. And if you break under the force of the attack, you'll gather again to your position and surround the enemy, etc. People know that, people in the battlefield. In the battlefield, it's not the time to discuss with your commander what to do or not to do. Plan is drafted and so on. And it would be executed. After the battle, accounting and discussion may come, no problem, but not in the battle. If you dispute, you will fail, and your strength, your wind will scatter. If you are not disputing, your wind is going in one direction, it has enormous force. The moment you dispute, the wind will spread and it has no force anymore. That's it. So it doesn't relate to that issue, and so on. That's reading the Quran in a digestive way. We digest what you are reading, understand the meaning, possible context, see the ayah before, the ayah after. They don't even see the ayah before, the ayah after, and which context it has come, which enlighten the meaning of the situation and give you extra information. And then you know when to apply it, and what's the limitation, what's the not limitation, etc. So that's so advice concerning Khwarij is a matter, I think, is nowadays, especially, is a matter of life and death. Go back to that video in which the issue of Khwarij and all the narration about that have been discussed, and interesting things have mentioned there, which I think 99% of the Muslims are completely unaware about. And the mistakes usually the Khariji, meaning the one who declared others to be kafir and kill them. That's only part of the definition, not all the definition. And other things they attribute to the Khawarij, some of them even wrongly, and some of them even they are correct in that point of view, and they regard that point of view is wrong because the Khawarij point of view, which is an upside down logic, etc. That's discussed in the video. I will not waste any time in that. So let's proceed with the second part. Also, but as a base, all the introduction shows clearly where we are going.
Yeah.
We're also someone who is all over the place.
Yeah. Also, well, to be honest with you, I mean, look, let's be honest. They're building a premise. They're twisting evidences. They are experts at twisting. So, for example, even for example, you mentioned about not going to Ibn Taymiyyah. Why would they go to Ibn Taymiyyah? They're effectively moving away from even what Abdul Wahhab brought, even though as excessive as he is, because they want. What do they want to do? What is their premise? The rule of Islam.
What they want you is to prostrate and worship the rulers.
That's it. So you get rid of the ruling. You get rid of this. So that way you will be your hands will be tied for eternity, and that's Islam for you. That's why we fixate on Madkhalis so much, because there's one thing when somebody says that, okay, just concentrate on yourself and things will get
the
better.
title of the books, the famous, a couple of books of importance. First one, al-Qutbiyya. Qutbiyya is like Sayyid Qutb. Sayyid Qutb was calling, yes, he made a mistake in saying, still talking about the system of the state or the constitution of the state. He talks about the mujtama, the society, because he don't know how to address the state directly, possibly by the system of the state rather than the persons. But if you talk about society, say our mujtama, our society now in Egypt is a jahiliyyah, like at the time of ignorance, pre-Islamic time. People say, oh, he means everyone is a kafir and so on. That's because he did not lose a sharply distinct. He would say, we are Muslim, this is a Muslim country, but the ruling system is a kufr system. This is the precise statement we should have said. He made a mistake at this point, yes. But they took that celebrated that and blubbered it all over the universe. But essentially, because he is advocating that the current rules are not legitimate and they can rebel against them. And this is the Qutbiyya. So they say, al-Qutbiyya here, al-fitna fahdharuha. One of their books called the Qutbiyya, following of Sayyid Qutb in this approach, is the fitna, is the sedition, is the tribulation. Be aware of it. Another book says, التوحيد أولا ثم الحاكمية. First Tawheed, then Hakimiyya. As if Hakimiyya is not part of Tawheed, even actually the spinal cord of Tawheed and its speak. So there's something called Tawheed, which is not Hakimiyya, meaning most likely graves and grave worship, which is a bid'ah almost bordering on kufr. But we're not discussing that today.
They will actually they're going to go into a lot of this stuff, because this is later on. So, for example, I mean, I might make this the second part